Holy shit. That was intense. Hello my brothers and sisters, my name is Daidarius and welcome to the review of Dunkirk. So Dunkirk is Christopher Nolan's latest movie, and for a change he actually make a movie based on historical events instead of just a brand new movie idea. Here's what I loved about the movie, and the thing is you can't talk a lot about the movie. I know it is based on historical events, so you can actually just go look it up. It has been present in human history for the past 70 years plus. However, I still don't want to ruin the movie per se, but here's what I liked about the movie with avoiding spoilers here. What I loved about the movie is that it is actually just a 2-hour long intense scene. Not an intense action scene. And there is action in here, but it's toned down for the better, but I will get to that later. It is just a 2 hours long, painfully tense scene where you're just clutching your seats and just hoping for the fuck of God that everyone gets out of this alive, because this movie is just about fight for survival and trying to get these brave men home to England. And I believe that is around 400,000 men that are stranded there at the beach of Dunkirk, and they have nowhere to run. The Germans are in their tail. They have surrounded them. All they want is just to get these men home, and all these men want is just to go home, even though many of them probably know that when they get home they're not gonna go home, they're gonna go to another battlefield. But that's just something they push away, because now it's just about we need to survive this and go home. And the thing is that this movie is kind of a slow burner, but it's a slow burner for the right reasons most of the time. It starts out with that you see these men are stranded on this beach, and there are a shit ton of them. They are just sitting ducks. The Germans fly over them with their airplanes, and they can just shoot them like fish in the barrels. It is just hopeless, and they can do nothing. They can't go back into the city because the German has taken over the city. So the movie start with, and this I'm gonna spoil. It's not a big spoiler, don't worry. The movie starts out with you see the men on the beach. There is this huge ship at the mole where they're gonna bring on the wounded and later on the men. And it is a week from home because it is stationary there, and they need to fill this up with the wounded. And it will take roughly a week from now for this ship to leave the mole and get home. You then see that the military or the army are recruiting a lot of civil fishing boats and just boats in general to get over there and bring people home. And we see this one boat, and I don't know what the man there was called, but he refuses to let an officer take over his boat. He empties his old boat and just load it with life-saving vests, and then he himself goes on to sail over the English Canal to save these men himself, because, you know, he thinks it is his duty. And these boats are a day away from, you know, the beach or Dunkirk. And then you see the airplanes where Tom Hardy's character is in, and we don't actually get his name, but they are going to give aerial support for the men on the beach, and they are an hour away. And in the beginning you just go, is there a reason for this information? And yes, there is, and there's a big reason. I'm just gonna say it here. So if you don't want to hear the reason why, and this is not a spoiler that you get this information, it is in the first 5 minutes of the movie, and you saw them in the trailer, and now you see where this starting point is. But if you don't want this thing spoiled, jump to this part of the review or click at the link in the description below, and I will no longer talk about this specific thing of the movie and get on with the review. So if you don't want this little thing be spoiled, jump to that part. So the reason this is a big deal, this information you're given, is that after some point in the movie you realize this movie is not told linearly. You actually see, for example, the planes journey from England all the way over to France and the dogfights they have to deal with on the way. Christopher Nolan actually cuts to their part of the journey multiple times during the movie because that's normal what you do to make everything interesting. However, their journey only took 1 hour, and you need to remember that the boat with the civilians took 1 day, and at some point you see, I think I've already seen this, or I'm about to see this thing that's going on at the ocean. And then you realize the events that you're seeing in the movie are not occurring at the same time. And then you remember back to, okay, so the soldiers on the beach and those of them we follow, all of that is taking place a week before the civilian boats head out. An hour before the civilian boats lands at Dunkirk, the planes take off. So it's actually a time thing that's woven together, and you don't actually lose your track of time of where everyone is because it is edited in a way that it all makes sense. You see something from the air perspective, and later on you see the same thing but from the sea perspective. It actually makes the movie more tense because otherwise you would have a lot of the movie just with these soldiers doing not that much to try to survive. I mean, they are fighting their own battles to make sure that they're still alive. But again, it is events happening over a week, and it would be kind of, I will say, boring if you had the first 2/3 of the movie just being about them and then suddenly cut in the civilian boats and then at the end cut in the air support. It will make a boring movie. So I think that this is actually an interesting way to tell a story. Also because you need, as an audience, to be awake. And I know you're not sleeping during the movie. It's not like... What? Is that an airplane? Has that always been there? It is actually entertaining enough so that you, of course, are awake during the whole thing. But Christopher Nolan is known for actually expecting a lot from his audience. You have seen it with Interstellar and Inception and Memento, just to name a few, and even The Prestige. And he also wants you to be awake and actually engage yourself in this movie, invest yourself in this movie and just watch it. But you need to keep track of everything that's happening around you and for the characters. And that's actually made for an interesting storytelling perspective. Okay, but not of that. So what I liked about this movie, and it also a gripe about this movie is, you know, it's you take what you can get. It is that you get to know, I believe, the name of one character, the real name of one character in this movie. It is George, who is the son of the civilian boatman, and that is it. And that means that you cannot identify with the people on screen the normal way that you used to. You don't get the backstory for these characters except one, and they don't talk that much. It's not a talkative movie. It's more action-based than it is talkative-based. Is that a word? That means you cannot identify with these characters from the beliefs for the different characters. Like often you will hear someone say something and you go, I can see what you mean. I feel for you. Not here, because this movie is not about the beliefs or anything about the persona. The only thing the movie focuses on is their will to survive and how they're doing it. And it's through these actions, these intense actions and goodwill from the civilians, that you actually get to connect with these characters. And I think this is the dividing point for a lot of moviegoers. I have seen people that praise this. I'm one of them who praise this approach, that you don't actually hear them interact that much with each other, but more get a sense of who they are from the actions that they do. And you get to cheer on because they are doing everything they can to either survive or help. However, that also means that if you are not able to connect with the actions that they do and the emotions they show on screen but not speak about, well, then you won't give a single fuck for all these characters at all. And I have seen people have that reaction too, and I get it. Does that mean they are just, not intelligent enough to see this movie? No, because every person is different and every person has a different movie experience with movies. That's why we will never have a perfect score or a perfect 0 when people go in to see these movies. That being said, I think it is a bit lousy to say that the characters didn't connect with you at all. I mean, you are looking at a person who's doing everything they can without hurting everyone else to survive or to go out of their way to help another human being. Do you really mean to tell me that that didn't awaken any emotion in you at all? Wow, you got some issues, man. For me personally, that would be the same as saying that the first half an hour to 40 minutes of WALL-E wasn't interesting because the dude didn't say anything at all. And you might go, but that's the cute little robot. No. It's the same thing. Okay? But then again, if you didn't connect, I'm not going to judge you. Don't worry. I didn't mean like that. If you didn't enjoy the movie, fine. You do you, I do me, and let's not do each other. I believe that's stolen from somewhere. Since that you either connect with these people or not, and that's also my gripe, that you didn't really know these people. However, that also means that you actually root for more to survive and not just specific people, because they slowly become a unit. But the other thing that I loved about this movie was the soundtrack. And then once again, since this is a Christopher Nolan movie, well, Hans Zimmer to the rescue for the score. This score is simple but effective because of one simple reason. Hans Zimmer has incorporated into the soundtrack a ticking watch. That's it. You know, a little pocket watch that also goes. It's almost present throughout the whole movie. And it makes every scene more tense, and it gives you the expression that you are about to run out of time. These characters are about to run out of time, and it is effective. And it's no point does it get annoying to hear that ticking sound because it incorporated perfectly into the movie. And I like that. Seeing some new things instead of just the old, have a big orchestra just blast away on the strings and the notes. Try to do something new, and Hans Zimmer did in this one, and I like that. Props for you, man. Now, I went into this movie thinking that I wasn't gonna like it that much, because I know Christopher Nolan is one of my favorite directors of all time. I think he makes solid, intelligent movies. However, I have seen a lot of war movies, I've seen a lot of Second World War movies before, and I have heard that some people didn't care for the movie and I thought it was a bit long. I don't, because the way it is edited and told. But the more I watched it, the more I actually fell in love with this movie. That being said, the whole story of the movie is these people need to get off the beach. There's no opposing threat except that you know that the Germans are right behind the corner. And that's it. You see some dogfights, you see some torpedoes from U-boats, and you see some ships sink. But that's about it. There's actually no story present in this movie, and it is kind of a bummer. For me, it looked like, if you take it's based on a real story out of the equation, for me it looked like a two-part episode of a series where you had these men fighting in Dunkirk, and they've slowly been losing, and now we're at the series finale, and they need to get out of there. It's kind of like the wall in season 4, I believe, of Game of Thrones, where they're fighting the wildlings, the Night Watch, and it's just about that. It's just about them trying to fight off these wildlings. There's not much story in it per se. I mean, there's a lot of things happening to characters, and they have a character arc, but story-wise, there's not much happening in that scene or episode except for them battling each other. And it's the same with this. It feels like a 2-hour season finale with these trying to get out of there and regroup. And that is a bit of a bummer, and it actually takes the movie down. Even though that, for what it is, it works extremely well, I would have loved to see more. I would have loved to see more from these characters, and especially when you think about that this is based on true events, that there were actually 400,000 men trapped on that beach, and not just English soldiers, there was also French soldiers. French, not France, the country, French soldiers. And I would also have loved to see more of the aftermath of that, because it ends quite abruptly. I mean, the ending could have been better, and not just, but Daidarius, it was based on true events, man. Yeah, but still. No, I mean the way it was ended. You can end it at any point, but no, just the way the ending was handled is what I'm getting at. It could have been better. And yeah, again, I'm not gonna spoil this 70-year-old historical event for you, but yeah, it could have been a lot better. But yeah, I would have liked to see more of the characters involved, even though that wasn't really the point of the movie. I think I maybe have just watched too much of Band of Brothers, but then again, you can't watch too much Band of Brothers. But in the end, what you have is an over 2-hour intense evacuation to get these men off the beach. Oh, and another thing. A lot of World War II movies focuses around the Americans' involvement in the war. And yes, you were involved, or your men, not you. I'm pretty sure most of them are dead by now. But yeah, a lot of your countrymen was involved in the war. I'll give you that. However, you are not that big part of the war if you think about it. And you might go, but we kind of won the war. Yeah, you won it with the other allies, but there was a lot of men fighting before you. You get what I'm saying? So I'm not discrediting you, everyone who fought in the war. Great job at what you did. But I'm just getting a bit sick and tired of every time there is a war, World War II movie made, it is always Americans, and it's probably always D-Day, and you just go, there was a lot other countries involved. There was some Russians, some Italians, some French, some Englishmen. I mean, all of Europe was in ruin, and you're just gonna focus on the same country all the time. Yeah, they had a big incident with Pearl Harbor, and it was of course tragic, but on the other hand, you had a whole continent in ruin because of the war. Can we focus a little bit on these guys, please? Well, I like that, and also the fact that it didn't take place during the D-Day. And they focused also on the Frenchmen. There is even a guy who you follow through the movie who is indeed French. Again, I like that they actually tried to acknowledge there was more going on in the war besides Americans and Nazis. I like that. More of that, please. But yeah, what you end up is this long evacuation almost scene that is intense. It is well told. A lot of you, I believe, will actually manage to connect with these characters. However, if you don't manage to connect with these characters from their actions only, this movie could be a bit of a drag because it is a slow burner. The reason is that war at that time was quite slow. If you wasn't in a guerrilla of gunfight, then nothing much happened. The air battle is slow because you need to get the other plane in your sight. That is hard. All in all, I think this was a great movie. It is, again, a great movie from Christopher Nolan. It is no near his best movie. For me, that will still be Inception, closely followed by The Dark Knight. But yeah, why do I need to be different? But all in all, I will say that Dunkirk is worth watching and worth buying on Blu-ray. So, Dunkirk, have you seen it? What do you think about it? Comment below and let me read your thoughts. And as always, until I see you in the next video, remember to stay awesome. Bye! Shh! I'm recording here, man. Jesus Christ, no respect.